Okay, it's time to get caught up on Strawberry Shortcake Berry Betty Adventures. Last week I had other obligations, and because this is the Strawberry Shortcake fandom and not the Brony fandom, sadly nobody uploads blind reactions of the series for me to follow it when I miss an episode on TV, and it takes forever for TV to re-air it at an hour when I'm home. So we catch up from last week's episode, which was the Berry Best Taste Tester. And in this episode we see Strawberry baking all sorts of desserts, and Apple Dumpling tastes them, falls in love with how wonderful they taste, and she raves about them on her internet blog. People read the blog, and before you know it, Strawberry is famous and in high demand. Later in the episode, Strawberry has a cold and can't smell anything, and she bakes something and she can't taste it, so she has no idea how good or bad it is. Unfortunately, it's bad, and wanting to not hurt her feelings, Apple Dumpling doesn't tell Strawberry that the food tastes bad, but still manages to give a review of it, thanks to Blueberry loaning her a thesaurus and dictionary, and Apple Dumpling only using words that make the review sound good and avoiding anything that sounds too negative. This causes a bad tasting cake to be ordered by some very important royalty for a major gathering. And when Apple Dumpling learns that things are about to go horribly wrong, she rushes to try and stop the cake from being delivered because she knows it's the one that tastes bad. Unfortunately, or fortunately, the cake is dropped by the mail carriers and ruined, so Strawberry has to rebake it anyhow, and all without finding out that the cake actually tastes bad. With Apple Dumpling off the hook, she decides to fess up to what happened and admit the truth that the cake tasted horrible the whole time. Strawberry agrees that this is indeed the fact, realizes her mistake, and fixes it once her cold has passed and she's regained her sense of smell. And presumably a better tasting cake is baked and shipped off to where it needs to be, and the girls get to enjoy good tasting cake again. The moral of this story was to tell the truth, even if the truth is something that others don't want to hear. The execution of the moral, however, could have been a little bit better. Frequently in Strawberry Shortcake episodes, characters seem to get let off the hook, rather than the formula that happens on other shows, wherein the mistake causes something to go wrong, somebody suffers because of this mistake, the characters feel bad and realize their mistakes. Having the cake get dropped by the mail carriers instead of having Apple Dumpling intercept the cake successfully is sort of the easy way out for Apple Dumpling. When characters normally learn lessons, they normally go through some kind of struggle or suffering. In cases like this, in some of the previous episodes of Strawberry Shortcake, when a character gets completely let off the hook, they have an opportunity to continue on with their lives, keep their secret, and never reveal the truth because they still haven't been found out. Instead of being found out and being forced to admit their mistakes, they're instead put into a situation where they own up to their mistakes regardless of the fact that they really didn't have to admit anything. This is perhaps better for the building up of the character's morality, that they admit their mistakes even though they never really had to because they hadn't been caught doing anything wrong. But on the other hand, being caught doing something wrong and having to admit your mistakes is better for the drama of the writing of the episode. The second episode, the one that was new this week, not the one from last week, is called The Very Best Biscuit. In this one, the girls are cooking up dog biscuits, and Apple Dumpling tastes one because the formula for the dog biscuit is generally delicious and yummy and enjoyable, and despite the fact that it is a dog biscuit, she believes she can eat just one and get away with it, and it won't be such a big deal. And technically it's not a big deal because the formula is very similar to one used in actual people food. It just so happens that this happens to be technically a dog biscuit. And because she eats a dog biscuit, Sour Grapes can't help but continuously tease her throughout the episode. The teasing becomes increasingly more frequent and more mean-spirited until Apple Dumpling decides to retaliate. Once the girls begin their prank war, the prank war becomes more and more complex, and it ends up in the destruction of property. Because property was destroyed and major messes were made and important people got messy from these messes, Sour Grapes and Apple Dumpling are tried in court and sentenced to go on a camping trip alone together so that they have time alone to bond as friends, which is actually quite a brilliant idea and one I wish more court systems would use. It would be great if instead of punishing criminals by sending them to jail and letting them out a few years later with no lesson learned, if criminals were punished by having them perform some kind of ironic punishment that taught them a lesson that would stick with them. The episode doesn't end with the lesson learned. No, it continues on. And after learning to get along as friends, Apple Dumpling and Sour Grapes begin doing things together. Sour teaches Apple Dumpling how to cook, and Apple Dumpling picks up on some of Sour's mannerisms and begins acting like her. The more the two spend together, the more Apple Dumpling starts acting like Sour, and the more Sour begins to enjoy the way Apple Dumpling acts. And this means that now Apple Dumpling is the one being sassy and sarcastic and mean-spirited and teasing people and joking around and calling people names and things of that nature. Eventually it goes so far that even Sour Grapes doesn't like the mean attitude that Apple Dumpling is showing off. And Sour Grapes and the other girls hold an intervention to show Apple Dumpling that she's been taking the teasing and name calling and the mean-spiritedness too far, and they should really leave that kind of stuff to Sour Grapes and let Apple Dumpling be herself. And this was another interesting episode, and one that seems a little more relatable to me because I knew someone with a Sour Grapes style personality. The thing that redeems a person with this mean-spirited personality is those few rare occasions when they do something nice for somebody else and you see that they indeed have a kind side. Too often people take a character who is a bully and make them straight up mean-spirited and give them no redeeming qualities whatsoever. They are the antagonist of the series or the antagonist to specific characters, and they never say or do anything nice or have anything redeemable about them. By giving sour grapes redeemable qualities, it makes her more interesting and more complex, and also more likable. Additional thoughts. This was putting your hoof down done right. In both stories, we have a protagonist learn a new form of behavior from an antagonist and take it too far. The lesson that Fluttershy learns from Iron Will and repeats on every pony in Ponyville, including on her friends, is a lesson that she takes too far, and she becomes way too mean-spirited. Only realizing in the end of the episode that she took things too far, and she uses the assertiveness to refuse Iron Will's payment. In this episode, however, Apple Dumpling takes things just the right amount of far enough, not going so mean as to make her a unlikable character. And the issue is resolved before things become overdone. And they're resolved by the person who started the issue in the first place. I think the presentation of being mean to your friends and later apologizing worked out much better here than it did on My Little Pony. So that's a point of quality in favor of Strawberry Shortcake, and a lesson to MLP on how their episode should have been written. Anyhow, that's all I have to say on the subject right now. Both episodes were a lot of fun, a lot more fun than some others in fact. I still recommend this series for people to go out and watch. I don't know what the holdup is or why people don't give the show a chance, but definitely deserves it. Anyhow, until next time, thank you for watching and good night.